All right, guys, welcome back to the shack. And if you thought this was just going to be just another one of xTool scripted sales videos, it's not. This is my take on this little guy who will soon be replacing my xTool F1 that I have used at all of my events ever since I've had it. This guy here is going to be taking its place, and it's earned that position. I've been running it for a week or so now, and I've tested it almost any scenario that I could put it in on the road doing events, and it is definitely worthy of a spot on my trailer. So if you're interested in seeing what I think about the machine, stick around and we'll be right back. All right, guys, so first I want to go ahead and just kind of set the mood for this video as far as where I'm coming from. My review or my look at this machine is kind of comparing it to the F1, because up until this machine arrived, the F1 from xTool has always been my go-to. It's been my go-to for events and for craft fairs, portable stuff, whatever kind of stuff I needed a laser for that could do those small items. The xTool F1 has been my go-to at events, and if I go to any events in the future, this little guy will be the one that I'm picking. From all the machines that I get to review, I kind of get to hand pick the ones that I use at events. And as you can see from these photos here, the xTool F1 has been my go-to up until now. But just to establish the kind of the mood surrounding this video, I'm not trying to sell you on this machine. If you already have a setup that you're happy with, then that's fine. If you already have an F1, should you run out and buy this one and replace your F1? Not necessarily. The F1 is a very capable machine. The F2 kind of takes that capability and that versatility that the F1 had and adds quite a few bells and whistles and a little bit of cool features to an already great chassis. And so I just want to kind of go and touch on the things that the F2 brings to the party that the F1 didn't have. So that's where we're going to go with the video. So let's get started. If you hadn't subscribed, go do that for me, please. Back to the video. All right, so if you saw my reaction video that I did, which by the way, I did that video in response to xTool leaking information that they told us not to put out. xTool, I don't have a contract with xTool. I refused to sign their contract a year or so ago. That's why I don't have any of those new big machines sitting around anywhere. But xTool did ask that we not release the machine until the 5th. Well, there was some mix up on that. They released some stuff. Some other people released some stuff. But, you know, I held true to my word and did what I told them. But today, we're going to really go through what I think about this machine. As you saw in that video, the form factor, guys, we're not going to go around this thing everywhere. It is identical to the F1 as far as its exterior appearance, except for a couple of things. You'll notice there's a little more badging in this little recessed area right here. The little remote that was similar to the F1 Ultra. And then you've got, of course, some peripheral plugs here for the air filtration box, which is that little guy, which has surprised me. But other than that, the outside is rose gold with orange on the shield. But the outside is basically the same. The inside of the machine, the two biggest things you'll notice is this camera right here, as well as it's got these light bars that illuminate the work area. So physically speaking, and just as far as a physical examination, those are the only big changes between the F2 and its predecessor, the F1. And so one thing that I've been getting asked a lot is, compared to the F1, if I've already got all these accessories for my F1, will they work with the F2? And from what I'm being told and from what I've tested, because I've tested my little pedal and my button, they work great with the F2. And I have also been told, I haven't been able to test this, that the little controller that come with the F1 Ultra will work with this machine. I haven't tested that, but that's what I'm being told. And I've seen a video where somebody else has tried it and it appeared to work. So the RA2 Pro will work with this machine. It has a lot of the same cables as far as the connectors for the accessories. It uses the USB-C for a lot of the peripheral stuff, but you know, these buttons and so forth came with the S1 type plug, as well as the F2 and the F1 Ultra use this little USB-C. So compatibility shouldn't be a problem with your peripherals. Now they do offer a new RA3 instead of the RA2 Pro. I didn't get one of those, nor did I get the conveyor, but I did get a smoke box, which is good because I'm gonna be using this at events now. All right, so other than the camera and the lights, the machine also got a bit of an upgrade when it comes to the output capacity of the machine. The new xTool F2, instead of the old 10-2, now you've got a 15 watt blue diode and a 5 watt IR. Now, that's not that big of a jump for the blue diode, but the IR, that's pretty substantial. You've doubled the output of the IR, which means your speeds aren't going to be quite twice as fast as they would have been with the F1, but it's going to be a substantial upgrade, doing things like anodized materials, even some light metal marking you'll be able to do with this machine at a lot faster pace than what you could with the F1. So I think that's going to be one of the key things with this machine over the original F1 is going to be the fact that you can do engravings on site, and you can do them a lot faster using the camera, or if you're like me and you use jigs, using the camera in combination with jigs is going to give you really quick setup time for jobs, and then that added increase in speed, it's going to allow your throughput at your booth to be a little faster with a little bit less waiting in line. So as far as the materials goes, I've tested the machine, and as you would expect, this is some of the regular birch plywood that I use around the shop. I'm getting really good results. A lot of these settings, I'm just using the plug and play settings that are in the new xTool Studio software. And speaking of the xTool Studio software, I've had a lot of people ask me about, does it have to have internet to operate? And the answer to that question is, it depends. To do basic, importing SVGs and sending them to the machine, you don't really have to have, any kind of internet access, Wi-Fi, hotspot, whatever. So if you're going to an event and they don't have internet, as long as you have your files already downloaded to your computer and you've got everything set up, you should be fine. No need for any kind of internet access. However, some of the features, the AI features, the auto batch, some of the embossing, stuff like that, some of those apps that are in XCS do require the use of internet. And the reason being is because they use servers to perform some of the calculations and stuff that are located on a server somewhere at xTool's headquarters or whatever. And so you have to have access to that server to use those features. Now, if you're not using any of the special features, you should be good without any kind of internet. I've ran some of my basic, tests and stuff like that without internet. It runs fine, but if you're going to use any of those special applications, some of those really cool features, you're going to have it. And that's just the cost of doing business with this machine. So one thing that I will say the technology has really shown out is if you're new and you're just getting into this machine, or if you just can't keep up with your material settings and you want to get your materials from xTool, these little QR codes that are on their material that they sent is pretty handy because as you can see right here, I'll try to show you in this video. As you can see, once you put the material in there and you take a picture, the camera automatically detects that QR code in the workspace, and it pulls up and it says, hey, this material has been recognized. Is this what it is? If so, apply these settings. That makes things really, really cool. But I do think the material lookup is pretty cool. It adds that extra little bit of ease of use for those folks who maybe have never been into lasers and don't have an understanding of how the settings work. That's kind of a fail-safe to allow you to have fun with assorted materials and know that you got settings that'll work. Now, I will say this. Their settings aren't always the perfect settings, but my experience and some of my testing that I've done is that they're pretty darn close. So, another thing that this machine offers that the F1 did not is something that you saw a lot in the F1 Ultra and some of the other machines, is where you can do embossing. And the way that the embossing works is that the machine, as it engraves, it kind of operates in reverse of a 3D printer, whereas a 3D printer would lay down a layer of material and move up. The laser, when it doesn't emboss, is it removes a layer of material and then moves down. And so this generates an embossed effect on the material. The F1, it didn't have that feature. Now, I have determined through testing that I suck at that. Okay, I need practice. This was my first attempt, and this was a 1/4-inch piece of poplar, and I literally embossed my way all the way through it. You can see the little hanger there. So there is a really good balance between power, speed, how much do you drop down. There's like a whole week's worth of testing to be done there. I did run a few of them. This one come out a little better, but I'm still way too deep on that one. You can see, I don't know if you can tell, but the pieces, the little profiles of my Santa, which is what this is supposed to be, are in pretty bad shape. So I kept messing around with it, and then I decided, you know, it takes a long time to do these, so I'm going to shrink that thing down and try a little more. And so I shrunk it down. I did this one. This one actually turned out okay. It has a really good, like, embossed feel, so it is raised. Certain elements are raised, certain elements are lowered. So I felt like I done pretty well on that one. And so then I decided to try it a little bit bigger. And like I said, this took quite a while. And this one is not quite as raised and as embossed as the other one, but at least I didn't burn all the way through my material. So the machine can do embossing. Whether or not you can do embossing and you're like me and just kind of stumble through it, I don't know. But I'm going to keep practicing, and hopefully I can come up with, you know, a way to explain the process to other folks. And so we might try to do a video with this machine on embossing. I'm definitely going to try to figure out how to conquer embossing in xTool Studio. But like I said, this one turned out pretty decent. I wish I'd have went ahead and cut it out while I was at it, but this was, like I said, running through some testing. I've also been asked, can it cut MDF? Well, I don't use a lot of MDF here in the shop. The one material that I do use that contains MDF is the true flat plywood, and it will cut the true flat plywood. I did run this speed test and found that, you know, it'll cut it, but it ain't pretty. The glues and stuff like that in the true flat tend to flare up and stain a bit more using a galvo, because you don't have an air assist to keep the flames extinguished. And so it's a little more prone, you can see around the edges, it's a little more prone to get that little flame licking behind it. And with this stuff, it does create a good bit of debris and staining, because there's legitimately like a little fire, a little tiny fire going around with it as it goes. It's not enough to hurt anything, but I would definitely recommend, if you're going to be doing MDF, stick with a machine that does have air assist. This one does a pretty good job with the plies, the plywood, and the different materials that don't have all of the glue and stuff. But the MDF, a little dense, because it's got so much glue compacted in there. It just makes it a little tough. So I'm getting some decent speeds, doing multiple passes with this machine. And with this machine too, while I've been running it with the little desktop smoke filter that xTool sells. And you can see it's gotten some use in it. This thing probably needs to be blown out with the air hose or whatnot. But it's been doing a surprising good job at keeping the smoke and the smell out of the shop. Because I have literally had this sitting here on the table. As you can see, this is the way that I've had it set up and running, and it's been doing a good job. Haven't had a lot of odor, haven't had a big deal with any smoke, and it's worked really good. All right, and one thing that I would like to point out is with this box compared to some of the other ones that I've used, they did leave this air gap above the cartridge that allows the smoke to get into the whole area and then be pulled down in through the filter system. And so the filter works fairly well, and you can see I've gotten this one it's gotten a little dirty, but what that does is with some of the other machines that I've used in the past, what ended up happening was that this top part right here, when you opened it up, it would have one little spot in the middle where the hose come in the top. So as opposed to this works really well so far. The one thing that I do like about it too is it's kind of sealed up really well here. You can see they've got gaskets and stuff. So this one has definitely been a little more care given to seal this thing up and make it seamless as opposed to some of the others. And I think it's a perfect accent for the little F2 here. And I will say this, I'm going to step out on a limb and say that if you have the F1, and maybe you're not going to get the F2, but this would definitely be something I would add to my event equipment because it's compact, everything. These little accordion hoses, you know, they all just kind of like compact up to this nice little form factor. So it definitely is a good accessory to have for this machine. And with this one, you can plug the F1 or the F2 into here and then plug it into the machine, and it works it automatic. And you can tell I've ran mine, guys. I haven't cleaned it, but I have ran it a good bit so far. You can see all of this smoke and soot on that. So if you guys were curious if I actually use my machines before I do a video, there you go. All right, so I don't want to overdo it with too many details about the machine, guys. xTool's done an excellent job on their page about pointing out all the differences and comparing the two machines. All the technical data is there. You guys don't need me to explain that to you. There's plenty of other people that will go over all the numbers with you. I just wanted to give you a real world opinion from my perspective as someone who does events, who uses machines portable, who works with lasers now every day. I just wanted to bring you my thoughts on this machine. Like I said, especially since I'd had such a long, ongoing work relationship, I guess you could say, with my F1. So let's jump over and look at some of the video of some of the jobs that I did, and we'll discuss a few more things, and then we'll wrap it up, guys. All right, so as soon as you get into the new xTool Studio, guys, this is what you get to look forward to. A forced cartoon illustrating safety precautions that you should take with your lasers. Now, however, I agree with the content. There's some really good information in there, but the animation, guys, I mean, enough with the AI. But anyways, once you get through with the safety training, you get to get into the new xTool Studio software. And see, there you are. Congratulations. We made it. All right. And speaking of AI, they've also created this AI make inside of xTool Studio. This is pretty handy if you need some graphics on the go and you don't want to worry about using copyrighted materials or just having to take the time to design it. More or less, you can text prompt this little chat bot here. And in this situation, I'm asking it to create me a cat wearing an orange shirt using a saw. And then, of course, it comes back and it asks me how I want it created. And I picked The Simpsons, as far as the style. So that is my Simpsons cat using a saw. And I'm going to set the material, hit apply. I didn't do any testing on this. And I'm just going to send this job over to the machine. So that's one way that I think some of these online tools, and like I said, you do have to have internet to use these tools, but some of these online tools are pretty handy in that, you don't have to go hunting for this stuff. You can just make it and send it to the machine right there on the spot. And another upgrade that the F2 gets over the F1 is curved surface. This is kind of a process that you've got to go through, but the software kind of walks you through it. I had never done this before. It uses a combination of what I can tell is the lasers and the camera to determine the shape of the object and creates this little point cloud. Then, when you send the image over, it basically tells the Z-axis to either raise or lower, however it needs to go, to kind of contour the shape best it can. And so with this baseball, that's what it's doing here, is it's just lowering until it gets all of the engraved done and it's through. And another thing that with the addressable Z that it has, it can do are these embossings. And we discussed how terrible I am at it, but there is a process in here. There are options that you can set up to do incremental, like, lowering of the Z-axis during the engrave to get different results. And that was one of the things that I was playing with. I was trying to be too aggressive, then I wasn't aggressive enough. It's a bit of a balance. But what it's doing is it's just rotating the engrave. And as it rotates, it engraves another layer and another layer and another layer. Typically, you're going to be using 256, I think, is the layer count that it runs. And it's just going to, as it engraves, it's basically going to leave part of the material and cause that relief to form. So it's pretty neat. Like I said, I haven't done a lot of it. I did play around. I did 4 or 5 tests on the machine today, and I got one decent result. But there is an art to it, so it still needs some practice. But all in all, like I said, the software it's gotten better, and I like the machine. It is, like I said, very F1-ish with lots of improvements. But let's get out of this computer over here, and let's go wrap up this video, guys. All right, so there it is, guys. My little makeshift event testing booth set up right there with the F2 along with the desktop purifier there. Like I said, basically everything you need to be able to do laser engraving at an event, minus the computer, tablet, whatever you want to use for control. Me personally, I use a laptop, but yeah, you can just take this little setup here. I've got my jigs, I've got the air purifier, I've got the laser. You can just take this little setup right here, that little bit of stuff, and go to an event and make a little bit of money with it. So I'm very thankful to see that xTool hasn't completely abandoned the small form factor machines like the F1. I think the F1 definitely has been a bit of a game changer for folks in crafting events and stuff like that. And I think this machine is going to be the next generation of that. Of course, that's exactly what it's designed to be, but I think it's going to do a really good job. And like I said, if you already have an F1 and it's working well for you, then just keep your eye on this one in case you need to replace yours. But it is definitely a viable machine for events. Like I said, you've got all the pros of an F1 with some bonuses. So I haven't found any negatives. I've tried to find some negatives because I don't want it to be one of those videos where it's like positive, positive, positive. But compared to the F1, all of the stuff that they've changed are, in my opinion, improvements. I haven't found anything that they dropped the ball on. So good news. I liked my F1. I think I'll love the F2. So there you have it, guys. But I'm going to wrap the video up for today. If you have any ideas or questions about the machine, feel free to drop those in the comments, and I'll get to those as soon as I can. If it's something you'd like to see the machine do, let me know. If it's something that I can get done, that I have the peripherals to do, I'll be more than glad. Like I said, I don't have the conveyor. I don't have the new RA3. I don't have the little control pad that goes with it. There's a lot of things I don't have, but I do have these two. So there's that. But yeah, I'll drop links down below, guys. If you want to check the machine out, feel free to use those links and let xTool know that even if you're not buying, even if you're just shopping, looking, comparing, whatever the case may be, click those links and go check it out, and let xTool know that the Clack Shack is talking about their products and sent you over to look at them. So till next time, be safe and have a good day.